Combine your landlines, mobiles and collaboration tools into one unified solution with Vodafone One Net Business.
Hello, I'm Brian Purcell, and this is the Ready Business Podcast, the show for startups and SMEs looking for some inspiration, insights, and some great advice. On this week's show, I meet the 17-year-old programming prodigy whose role models are Google's co-founders Sergey Brin and Larry Page, and his company qCrypt looks like it could be a game changer for data encryption. And all of this while he's studying for the Leaving Cert. Shane Curran is certainly one to watch, and this is his future maker story.
I've a lot ahead of me, so I mean, I'm not too sure where I'll end up yet in terms of college or anything. You know, that's all ahead of me with the Leaving Cert and stuff. But you know, I think as the plan's progressing now at the moment, I'm sort of leaning towards running the company I've been working on at the moment. So if I can keep that up and sort of balance everything else, that'd be a nice way to live. But you know, there's definitely a lot of opportunities unfolding day by day. So you know, I'm just trying to make sure that I pick the right ones and don't do anything too stupid.
Yeah, and would you hope then, if you do land a course, would you think you'll take a course and then run the company parallel to that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think college is very important, or just, you know, third level education in general, particularly in the field I'm in. You know, it's all right to take some sort of simple concept and implement that, but you know, if you really want to innovate, you have to sort of pick up the technical know-how from somewhere. So for me, that'll be sort of, you know, somewhere between physics and computer science, I'm guessing.
And of course, there's probably other things you can find out in college that'll probably spark new ideas or maybe new little pivots within your business.
Exactly. I mean, every 6 months, I kind of change my mind entirely on some particular topic because I learned something new. So, you know, in a year's time, who knows, I could be doing something entirely different anyway. So
how has winning the Young Scientist competition helped you?
Yeah, it's been incredible. I mean, it was my fourth time entering, so I was sort of well drilled in the competition at that stage. But you know, to kind of finally get there in the end and win the overall prize, it really does sort of unleash a whole new avenue or a whole new group of avenues for you know, for your future. Basically, you know, it's well recognized not only in Ireland but internationally as well. So you know, people have been in contact from all over the world interested in, you know, not only the technology but how they can you know, either what was to do with the young scientists in particular and sort of how they can take that, or, you know, my particular research as well, how they can bring that to their own company or their own lives.
So tell us about this business that you've set up off the back of the Young Scientist. Tell us all about that and what is it?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, just to give it a bit of context, my Young Scientist project was basically building new ways of encrypting data for a very long period of time and making sure that it's independent from any adverse judicial input or you know, similarly sort of human involvement and, you know, malicious actors. So basically I took that research project and the company is now sort of evolving into a way of granting data owners access to their data and making sure that they own it in the long run. So if you look at the internet these days, it's sort of almost a feudalistic model. You have companies like Google, Facebook, Twitter that basically own your data and, you know, you're willing to give that to them for free. So we're basically trying to restructure how that data ownership works and grant the full control back to the user themselves so they can, you know, sure, they can sort of license or lease the data to the company that wants to use it, but we're building technologies that allow, you know, allow that to be processed securely and ensure that that sort of transaction takes place seamlessly.
I'm really interested in the fact that this is going back in history now, and it came up really strongly last year. The idea came about from the Boston College police tapes. Tell us the background to the Boston College story first and how it piqued your interest.
Yeah, sure. So basically, the Boston College tapes were an oral history project conducted by Boston College with sort of both sides of the, you know, the nationalist dispute in the North. So yeah, they interviewed members from both sides. And the agreement was that none of these testimonies would be released until after the death of the people.
These were from basically IRA members and loyalist
exactly,
paramilitary members, yeah.
Yeah, so both sides of the dispute. You know, I thought how instead of sort of using the judicial system to protect these secrets like they had been protected previously, you know, there was a number of sort of problems with that. There was an agreement between the UK and the US called MLAT, the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty, which basically allowed both countries to cooperate on legal cases, which meant that because these had been, you know, carried out by a US college, Boston College, that the UK, so that side of the dispute had the control to basically force the US to release that information.
Yes.
So I thought, you know, how could I use technology to solve that problem to ensure that, you know, we're not relying on legal or judicial laws, we're relying on the laws and maths to solve that problem.
So just say I gave a story to the Boston College about my involvement in, we'll say, way back in the Troubles in the 70s. This could be completely encrypted and I would have control of it.
Exactly, yeah. So, you could even publish the encrypted information wherever you want in a public place. And the way I like to explain is that you send a heartbeat. I call it a cryptographic heartbeat, where maybe once a day, once a week, once a month, you send this heartbeat. That's essentially a signature verifying that you're still alive and you are still you.
Yeah.
So you verify that you are who you say you are. And as long as the heartbeats keep coming in, then the information stays secret. But once that time period passes, that information can then be just released to the public,
Okay.
and it can be made public after the death of the person involved.
Yeah, because we know that a lot of these stories, they were, I suppose, released while the people who gave the stories were still alive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think even in more low-level implementations, it can be much more useful, even for just personal information. So if you have a will or even a personal journal or something, you can use the exact same technology to protect your secrets in the same way.
Okay.
So it's a really broad-ranging technology in the sense that it can be applied to individuals as well as sort of state-level actors as well.
So Shane, when did all this start? What age were you when you decided to have a go at this encryption lark?
Yeah, so encryption was kind of more of a recent development for me. I'd always been interested in technology. I started when I was very young, probably 6 or 7, making simple websites for things I was interested in. From then on,
At age 6.
Yeah.
Wow,
So they weren't very good, mind you, but I suppose it's a start anyway. Yeah.
And were mum and dad behind this? Was it all you?
No, it was all me. So neither of my parents are in computing. They're in science, or well, my dad's an engineer, my mom's a chemist. So it's the apple hasn't fallen too far from the tree.
Well, we can see your word anyway, that with the right way. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the brain kind of works roughly like that anyway. But it was pretty much self-driven. So I got access to the internet pretty young. Most people my age were sort of they were on the internet a little bit, playing Club Penguin and stuff, which I played a little bit as well. But I use the information the internet as well to basically just access information, because I think when you're exposed to it at such a young age, instead of your sort of approach to obtaining information changes very much, because you're not relying on just asking other people information or just sort of learning stuff initially. You can kind of just ask Google or whatever the search engine is that you use a particular question, and you have the information there right away. So I use that tool. I probably exploited it quite a lot, and sort of learned how to build simple websites. Over time, I think I just got a little bit more ambitious with what these websites needed to do. So initially they were just pretty pointless websites with my broken English at the time, and how I could just share this information with my friends. But over time I kind of wanted to add functionality to it and make it solve a real problem. So a few years later, I suppose my first proper company was called Librum Attic. I basically built an online system for managing libraries, where instead of typing in all the book's information manually, you simply scan the ISBN barcode using the camera on a smartphone. It then searched the internet for all that book's information, and it was stored in the database. So a librarian can just loan it out to an individual by scanning the barcode. So I spent a couple of months kind of building it when I was in 6th class. And then, I had it done, and it was, impeccable. At least in those days, it was sort of impeccable by my standards. I brought it to them, and they just said, "Oh, that's kind of cool, but we're just going to stick with our existing system." So I thought, if my own school aren't interested in using it, surely there's some other places that would use it. So I basically built a website, launched it at an event called Dublin Beta, which is basically a startup meetup event. So I won that competition when I was 12. It was kind of funny because it was in a nightclub on South William Street. So I was 12, going out with my dad, chaperoned by my dad, to a nightclub. The bouncers at the door were looking at me a bit suspiciously. Should we let this guy in? But eventually I got in anyway.
Yeah, you weren't 6'4" back then.
No, not at all. So I got in the end, presented my project or my company, and managed to win the competition. So that got me a little bit of media attention, and that sort of sparked the entrepreneurial side of me anyway.
Like, do you think are schools missing out on a trick, or are they up to speed on this? That they're trying out. Are they trying to force coding down on kids? Are they trying to force anything online on them? So this is the way to go. That forget all the other stuff. This is where you need to be.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're forcing it, but there's a lot happening now in terms of the Leaving Cert curriculum and the Junior Cert curriculum as well. That's shifting the focus more towards computers. So there's a Leaving Cert computer science course that's being piloted in 40 schools from September onwards. So, they are definitely taking steps to promote its growth and to promote sort of technology or STEM skills, as they call them, in people from a young age. But I think it's, leaving cert is nearly too late to get that sort of interest and spark that interest. I think a lot of it has to happen in national schools and even younger.
Yeah.
And, a lot of it's also down to the parents themselves. I don't believe that, that everybody needs to learn how to code. I think that's pretty much nonsense. I think, if anything, over time, software is just going to become easier and easier to build. And, with AI and things like that, a lot of the problems will almost solve themselves. So I think there's still going to be a demand for people in technology, but I think the actual raw numbers of people that are needed and, the number of people that are actually going into it as well is going to decrease in the coming years.
Yeah.
It mightn't be in the next 5 or 10 years, but I think in the long run, there's definitely going to be sort of a sudden realization that it's, not necessarily the path for everyone. And, that's sort of been represented as well in, for example, the CAO points for computer science courses. They sort of peaked, about 5-6 years ago. And, they're sort of on a slow, gradual decline at the moment, as people are sort of realizing that it's not all just making games or whatever. There's sort of maths pretty much. It's not all it's made out to be, but it's, they're definitely very important skills and very useful skills as well, just to have as an ability to sort of solve problems.
So qCrypt, is it ready to go? Is it ready to sell, or what's the plans to commercialize it?
Yeah, I mean, there's the sort of minimum viable product that we've got at the moment is being used by a few people. I think over the coming 6 months or so, there's going to be a lot more action happening. I think we're going to be raising a seed round over the next couple of months. So there's a lot happening in that regard as well. Similarly, the product itself will begin to grow.
Are the Collison brothers of Stripe fame, are they role models you want to aspire to?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're doing great things. I'm meeting them next week, so
It sounds like they could do with your stuff, could they?
maybe, yeah. No, I think we've a few bits in common in the sense that Patrick won the Young Scientist as well, and being Irish over in California too. It's sort of it's not a particularly big community, so I think it's a nice little niche to be in because everyone's so helpful there.
So you're meeting up with them?
Yeah. No, I've it's my Easter holidays at the moment, so I have a little bit more free time. So I'm heading over to California next week to sort of line up a few meetings and everything. So it's sort of important that you cluster them all together because I don't have the freedom to just fly over whenever I want these days. But from the summer onwards, I'll have a little bit more leniency.
Fabulous to go there though and meet them, isn't it? And they're open to seeing you.
Yeah, no, it wasn't easy to get in touch with them, but it's definitely a very helpful community, and I think anybody that's any Irish person that wants to get involved in technology in Silicon Valley or elsewhere, there's very strong connections there, and people are more than willing to help out.
Okay, would you like to end up over there and have a building next door to them?
Maybe, yeah. No, it's San Francisco is definitely a lovely city. Dublin's also very good as well. I think there's a lot happening here too over. Or in terms of sort of the technical skills, we're a great company for salespeople. I think Irish people are well able to talk on average anyway. So I think it's, it's a very good place to set up if you're looking to build a European base, like many of these other large companies have. But I think in terms of the early stage venture capital and that sort of side of things, it's very much still sort of deeply rooted in the Valley and the US in general.
Sure. Who are your role models in business?
Oh, that's a good question.
Who do you look to?
I admire a lot of the kind of early innovators in technology. So, the sort of Fairchild semiconductor company. So like Robert Shockley and all those kind of guys are very cool.
Yeah.
As a more sort of contemporary group of people, I admire Microsoft as well. I think they've built a really, really, really solid business. It took them a long time, but I think they're doing very well now, and under new leadership, they're also sort of progressing quite well.
How about the Google lads, Brin and Page?
That's another great company. I suppose they're a little bit newer, founded in the late 90s. Sergey Brin and Larry Page are also very, very good role models to look up to. I suppose kind of moving from an academic background and then pushing that into business as well. They're of good people to look up to as well. Yeah.
Would you see yourself like kicking on with qCrypt and everything you're doing, or would you see yourself maybe the chief executive of one of these huge multinationals eventually?
Maybe qCrypt can be a huge multinational, so I suppose that'll be the best of both worlds. But I think I'm going to kick on with this as it stands. Who knows what'll happen in the next year or two?
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to it, and it's an exciting prospect.
Shane, I just, fair play to you. You've done an amazing amount with your short life so far, and you're playing rugby and you're doing 10 subjects with the Leaving Cert. But there must be something our listeners can learn off you. I think there is. Because you have such a refreshing mindset, and you just get on with things. This can-do attitude you have is fantastic. Top 3 tips for people to make it, in your opinion?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I could give all the cliched advice, but I think
no, give me yours, your personal stuff.
Yeah. I think one thing, as Irish people in particular, we do tend to kind of, restrict our goals and visions. We kind of, being a small country, I think we have the capability to actually develop anything we want to. But I think on average, people tend to kind of underestimate their own abilities. So, if you come up with a new concept, I would, just go for it and bring it up to the next level. So if you're looking to, to build some market or target some market in Europe, you should grow that to the world.
Because there's always a next level, isn't there?
Exactly. Yeah. No, there's always somebody bigger than you.
No matter how short or long, there's always a next level.
Yeah, I mean, even in the sports aspect as well, if you're playing rugby or something, there's always some guy that's bigger than you as well, no matter what size you are. So it's, it sort of applies in business as well, and just in innovation too. So yes, that's my first tip. My second tip would probably be to just do it. I think, again, people are a little bit more conservative in Ireland and kind of want to, they might want to play their cards smartly, which is a good thing as well. But if you have an idea and a passion that you really want to go for, you should put whatever you don't like doing on hold and just go for it.
Sure. Do you see any particular country that actually does do it faster or maybe quicker than we do, or maybe more open?
I think the innovation culture in the US, and particularly the West Coast in the US, is something to look up to. It is with the sort of influence that the sort of West Coast companies in the US are having on Ireland as well. It is creeping into Ireland as well, which is great to see. Yeah. And people are a little bit more traveled now and everything. So it's it's good to see that the cultures are kind of meshing together. But I think there's a lot happening in how people are learning from other cultures as well, and it's great to see.
Okay. Have you one more tip for us?
Being able to balance your life, particularly for a young person, that's very important to do. So someone that's my age and is in secondary school and is sort of trying to balance their social life and sports and everything, it's important that you do that. I think a lot of people tend to fall into the trap of just focusing on one thing. A lot of people in 5th and 6th year as well just sort of focus on the Leaving Cert. I think it also applies to when we're a little bit older and in the working world as well, that people tend to focus on one thing and specialize in one thing as well. I think it's important to keep your options open and, do your best to kind of become a polymath or Renaissance man, because there's no point in specializing in one thing if, that one thing mightn't even be around in a few years' time.
You can see me making notes on that one now for the older people. Thanks very much, Shane. Shane Curran, look, it's been really enlightening. I really love speaking to you. You've a fascinating mindset, and all I can say is best of luck in the future, and to your company, qCrypt.
Thanks very much.
That's it for this week's episode of the Ready Business Podcast, and my thanks to Shane Curran of qCrypt for joining me on the show. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and SoundCloud, and join me next time as we discover more inspiring future maker stories.
Simplify how you work with cloud-based unified communications. Vodafone One Net Business.